All right.
Hey, everyone!
Welcome back to South by Southwest from Fanboy TV live today. With me is Jeffrey Lord and Van Tracy and Julia Barnett. So y'all are with what film today?
Chasing Grace.
Chasing Grace. Amazing film, by the way. Y'all filmed here in Texas, Dripping Springs, in fact, which is actually not that far away from us. So let's go ahead and kick off this interview. You're Van Tracy. You did the production design for this show, correct? So an amazing thing about this film is that it's set during the 70s, primarily. It kind of flashes back and forth between the 70s and the 80s, early 90s. Yep. Where did you find some of your stuff?
We were very fortunate because that was one of the biggest concerns. You know, where do you find those pop cans that have a pull tab still, especially ones that haven't been opened yet?
Especially from like brands like Lone Star and Old Coke, Old Coke pull tabs, and the Oilers sticker, which was an amazing thing.
I was really interested because the cans, I was like, did they make them or did they
were
have to find
70s
them?
cans.
Yeah,
oh, wow. That's really impressive.
The Dripping Springs community was actually great. We had put out sort of a APB, like anybody who's got 70s stuff from the production cars to just prop things, and got a huge response. We found a guy whose whole house is almost filled up with 70s paraphernalia.
Oh, that's
fantastic. The Oilers
to
one
hear.
was a little more difficult. I had to sort of custom make that.
That's understandable. I mean, that is the film business. If you can't find it, make it and go with it.
So tell us a little bit about your film now that we've geeked out about the production design a little bit, because that's like my passion. I love production design bits like that. Chasing Grace is essentially a family drama. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that? Because I think your words are going to be better than mine at describing it.
Yeah, it's set in the 70s, and I grew up in the 70s as a child of divorced parents, and so you see a little bit of my childhood in there, just that inspiration. But it's about this girl who's like 21, 22, and she's estranged from her father. He kidnapped her as a child, and so they meet together and they kind of re-explore the memories that they had in the 70s and kind of the truth of what happened. And the whole kind of concept around it is, I think so many of us who come from broken homes or whatever, like some of our memories can't always be trusted. We think one thing, and then when we get older, we see it from a different perspective. And so I really wanted to explore that in the film.
Yeah, this was not a hard watch, but a very close to home watch for me, because I've got my stepfather, I've got a biological father. I love them both. But it wasn't always easy for me growing up, because I was just one of those kids where I wasn't easy to handle to begin with. Yeah. So it was just amazing.
What? Stop.
I really enjoyed the overall outcome of the film and just the way you guys perceived that to the audience, and it was very emotional, very heavily emotional based. If you, I mean, if you guys actually sit down and watch this, it's just like,
grab the tissue.
Wow, it's like, what's gonna happen next? What did they go through all the steps that they have gone? It's phenomenal, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So yeah, and especially like we were talking about the production, the way you guys did all your research and everything, you went in depth and got all that, and then you got the community involved, and that's what I really like about filming, is that you guys, you don't know what's gonna happen. You talk about, you do this and this and this, and then you're like, hey, and you have no idea what you're gonna get back. And I was really appreciative that you guys actually got the community back in and say, yeah, we'll love to help you guys.
For sure.
And go with this. This is
and
really
the person who did our wardrobe, I thought, like, Myra, she was amazing, because
it was very authentic.
Yeah, so you can watch a movie and you're like, oh, they're playing the 70s or whatever, but I mean, you really felt like we were in it, and we got some great like vintage clothes too for it, so that was fun.
It looked like Ellen actually sat down. I mean, even the camera work looked like vintage 70s cameras. Were y'all finding these old cameras?
We used a C300, but our colorist is amazing.
Nice.
It does help.
Yes, and we really wanted, kind of like every time we went back to the memory, we wanted it to feel so different from the present day in the 90s was at that time. So.
That was sort of how we picked up that transition with the Viewmaster.
Yes.
When we would switch back to 70s, having that sort of reoccurring.
Yeah, that was actually a really brilliant touch, because I remember playing with a Viewmaster as a kid. Was that just like a last minute thing, or was that actually something I wanted to do from the start of production?
In my script, we open with the Viewmaster, with the little Grace looking through the Viewmaster, and so I knew that's kind of how I wanted to open it, this nostalgia. But then as we went through the editing process, we realized, like, oh, the Viewmaster would be so cool if we use that as a transition. So it came about.
Especially when you've got a film that goes back and forth from a time period to time period.
Right.
It can sometimes be a little confusing for the audience, like, okay, yeah, I mean, you do your best to, with the filters and stuff, say, okay, yeah, this is 70s, this is late 80s, early 90s.
Correct.
But
Yeah.
that made it so, it just was a great transition, a great way for the audience. Okay, yes, we know we're back.
Especially in a short. You know,
Now, I had a slight question. Is like, okay, so you guys decided why? I know you grew up in the '70s and everything, but was that the reason you filmed it in the '70s? Is because that was your childhood growing
yeah,
up?
I think so.
You say you had some inspiration to put into the film and such.
I mean, I personally have so much nostalgia about the 70s, and now that we have our own children, we're actually married, even though we have different last names.
Hey, that's completely understandable.
Show business.
I kind of sometimes miss some of the 70s, like, oh, you could drive in the car and you know, lay down in the back seat and you didn't have your seatbelt on, and Dad always had a beer in his hand and nobody cared. And you know,
I've heard stories about that.
I mean, don't be mad. I'm
It's
not saying you
fantastic
should
to see
drink and
that.
drive. I'm just saying, like, there was this relaxed nature. Now we have to put every helmet and knee pad and whatever, and we're scared. Don't go outside. Oh, don't walk too far away. You know, and like, and there was some. We're all fine. We all survived.
And it made for a great 70s theme party that we did for a fundraiser
Oh,
for the
see-
film.
oh,
Because
that's-
we decorated, you don't see it in the film because it ended up all being cut, but we laid about 1,000 square feet of linoleum in our house, wallpaper, that
wow.
ugly avocado and orange, and had this huge 70s theme party where everyone came dressed, and it was a great time, and we raised a lot of money, but it didn't end up in the film.
No.
Now you guys were so you guys filmed it. It was marvelous and just remarkable about everything that you guys had to put out there. And you know, it's your childhood, but what really is your childhood? But what else inspired you to write this film and to get it out there?
You know, I think
It's a little bit of a trick question. I was like, ah.
Well, I've been working on this story for a while, for almost 10 years. And
Oh, wow, nice.
Yeah, and I wanted to write it as a feature, and then I just decided I wanted to do it as a short, and my daughter plays young Grace in it. And I really wanted it to be a girl like around 6 or 7. And honestly, I was like, I better do it now because next year she's going to be 7 or 8 and I won't be able to do this film with her. And so I kind of just made the decision actually last March. I'm like, we're going to do it. And so we shot in August and here we are.
Well, so you put your daughter as the main character, basically. And what was, if you don't mind me asking, what was her perspective on the whole film and going into the film industry like that?
You know, she's actually already done other films, and she has a film that premieres tonight, Infinity Baby. She's in
Oh,
that.
wow, fantastic.
I know,
Well,
I know.
congratulations out there.
Yay.
A 7-year-old
Yay.
in two South Park movies.
But it was actually a really bonding experience for us, you know. So that was kind of cool to be able to do that together, and I played her mother in the film, so that was easy.
That's fantastic.
And also, I will say that my relationship with my dad growing up was a lot like Paper Moon. I don't know if you ever saw that movie. And so I kind of wanted to like recreate, like I feel like Grace and her dad are kind of like that a little bit.
All right. So one last question before we wrap up. One of the scenes that stands out for me, outside of him receiving the letter, is there's a car scene. Was the landscape of Dripping Springs in the area kind of difficult to work with, or was that just kind of you found a nice hill and it worked to your advantage?
You're talking about the
First scene when they
they're
first start
past-
When they're
driving.
going
yes,
down the
we
hill.
found that street in kind of way out in the country, but we did have to wait for a few cars, you know,
That's understandable.
to pass. But it actually worked out really well. And then we used it again, that same street, with Grace when she comes back as an adult. And I hope people noticed that like she was kind of going back through the same.
Yeah,
but-
that
Well, that's too great. I really appreciate your guys' film. Thank you so much, Julia Barnett and Van Tracy with Chasing Grace.
Where can we find your film before we let you go?
Yeah, so it plays at the Rollins Theater on Monday
Nice.
at 11:15, and then 9:30 on the 16th at Zach Theater.
Well,
Nice.
guys, if you haven't seen this is definitely a emotional roller coaster, but it's so worth the watch. I enjoyed it. Courtney did. And we hope
cried
you
a
do
couple
too.
times.
And we premiered last night.
So there we
Yeah,
go.
the Vimeo. So, yeah.
All right. Well, everyone, stay tuned for more interviews with Fanboy TV South by Southwest 2017.
Thank you.